Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Cassidy. I'm here with the Dyslexia Resource Center. We're going to talk today about alternative education models for dyslexic students. So, welcome. We're on summer break, but a lot of parents and educators are thinking about the fall. So, I think this is a timely topic. One thing that's important to understand is that not every dyslexic student is the same. There are students who have mild dyslexia and may do fine with support in a school that is supportive, right? So that's always important. And then there are other students who have moderate to severe dyslexia who may need more intensive support. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. What does that look like as far as schools are concerned? Okay, so we're going to start off talking about general picture of what's out there and why there is a need for alternate or alternative educational models for students with dyslexia. So, the majority of students in America attend public schools. There are increasing number of charter schools, but still most students attend traditional schools. The good news with the increase of charter schools is that there are more specialty charter schools for students with dyslexia or other disabilities. And we'll get to that. Then we have students that are in private schools where the parents pay money. There are students that are in Catholic schools or other religious schools. There are plenty of those across the country. And then there's homeschooling. So the great thing about school choice for a dyslexic or a non-dyslexic is, the parent can gather information and decide what is best for their child. So traditional schools, whether public or private, they look at students as a homogeneous group of students. And there are exceptions to this, but the way the model is built is that they're anywhere from 20, 22 kids to 32 kids in a classroom, and they're considered, there's a spectrum of capabilities of the students, but they're basically seen as homogeneous, a fairly consistent group of students, which is not true, but that's how the model has been developed. And there are caveats and there are routes for kids that are struggling, but I think the important thing is the classroom's built to say, here are these 20 to 30 kids, and we have a teacher who's going to give the instruction, and the instruction is going to be relevant and appropriate for every student. And then if the student doesn't do well, it's usually considered the student's fault. Sometimes it's considered the teacher's fault, but rarely what is considered is, like, is there a neurological reason? Is there something going on in the brain that could cause this difficulty in the classroom? And like I mentioned, there are kids that have mild dyslexia that can do well in a traditional classroom. I still believe they should be identified so they have their accommodations, so that there's an understanding of them in the classroom. But where you really see problems are with children with moderate to severe dyslexia. And then again, it depends on the grade. Some students will be really challenged and do poorly in first and second grade when they're trying to access those reading skills. Some students can memorize and get through first and second grade okay, but then when they get to the third, fourth, fifth grade where they have more language homework, they start struggling. So this looks different for different kids and at different ages. My belief is that education should look something like going to the doctor. And the reason I say that is if you go to the doctor to be able to give you the best, say, medicine or prescription or physical therapy or whatever it is you may need, is based on information. The more information, usually, the better the outcome. And so that would be the history of the problem, how it manifests, how it's been helped, how it's been made worse. So this is the same for dyslexia. And then their tests run. And then the doctor can give the patient the best, quote, medicine or remedy for the problem. Now that's not done in traditional education. What is done at Louisiana Key Academy, which is a charter school for students with dyslexia, and the model that I prefer, is that the students are tested. They are given a screening test first, and if it appears they're at risk for dyslexia, then there's an interview with the parents and with the student, and a look at their past history. Where have they struggled? How have they struggled? Any things that have been done to help their struggle, and then we do the testing. So then we can say, oh yes, your child or the student is dyslexic, and we can tailor the education that we know works best for you as a student. And our teachers know, how and why you're going to struggle. They know how and why you need accommodations, why you need certain tests, why we need to remediate certain deficits. So it's just, rather than acting like it's a black box and everybody's in that one box, it's more of a nuanced approach based on the medical model. And again, this is seen in Louisiana Key Academy, so that the student can get exactly what they need. And I'll give you an example. Say you're a student, or have a child that is struggling in a traditional classroom. And the way that most of the schools do assessments these days, they do these assessments on the computer. And then they'll look at the data from the test. But what the computer assessments don't do as well is, one, they're not as deep or as extensive to give you measurements on different skill sets, say for the acquisition of reading, or they're the students reading silently, which doesn't give you any information. Like, a child may take a test and it says, their comprehension level is terrible. It's like, okay, we've got to do something for their comprehension, but could the child even read it? If the child can't read it, then they can't comprehend it. So the testing done is important, but it has to be the correct testing. It has to be extensive enough to really help the teacher and the school know where the struggle is. Is it at the basic language acquisition level, where it's, my child can't even understand the ABCs, that the sound of the letters? Is it a little bit later, where they just don't know that they must pull apart a word into sounds? Is it that their phonics has not really been taught correctly? Is it their vocabulary is poor, or is it comprehension? So a school that really evaluates to that detail is going to help a student with a disability like dyslexia get the best instruction, and also help the teachers to have a knowledgeable assessment of why the child is struggling and what is best to help them get to the next level, whether it be instruction or accommodations. You can say, well, and a lot of schools will say, oh, that's not true, we're doing a great job. Well, if we look at statistics, and the one that has, we've had for years, the nation's report card, which is NAEP, NAEP. That test is done every 2 years, and that test is done randomly to certain students at schools across America that get federal funding. So it's a random pick of students. They are given tests for reading and math in the 4th and the 8th grade. And I tend to look at the 4th grade statistics because we know that is the time where critical time where they've either received identification and are starting to get intervention or they haven't. And so your fourth grade reading NAEP data tells you a lot about what this group is going to look like in eighth grade, in high school, and beyond. And the data has been telling us similar things over the last several decades. And what it shows is that 50% of Black and Hispanic kids read below basic, and 30 to 33% of white kids read below basic. And those kids that read below basic are functionally illiterate. Many of them are dyslexic, and those that are dyslexic, probably have not been identified as such. And you can look at your state, Louisiana. If you look at our fourth grade reading, it has dropped. It was like over 50% at one time was below basic of our public school students. Now I think it's 43%. So still a very large number, down, but nowhere it should be. And if you look at the states that really say, oh, we're doing a great job, they still have 37% reading below basic. So this is a national crisis, one that is not being addressed by the traditional school model, whether it be public, charter, private, religious, and they weren't all made to be, but just saying that it shows the need for specialty schools, of which Louisiana Key Academies, these are 3 schools, are the largest network of schools for kids with dyslexia. And the beauty of LKA is that it is a tuition-free school that tests the students for free, trains the teachers in the science of dyslexia, and then configures the classroom and the education specifically for dyslexia. The biggest problem is the lack of awareness that the kids should be identified at the end of kindergarten, so they're getting into LKA or schools like LKA in first grade. Instead, most of the children are coming in third and fourth grade, which is we just missed this very large window of instruction and real ability to change outcomes. So, with that said, I think I've given you enough evidence for the need for alternative schools. So, in this second segment, what we're going to do is talk about an overview of specialized school for dyslexia. So, if we look at, say, what's the difference between, and I'm going to use Louisiana Key Academy, and I'll talk a little bit about some other schools I know, but what's the difference between that and a traditional school? And that's a great question, because I think people think that, oh, this is some kind of weird school, which is not. So, number one, the schools I know of, I know the model LKA the best, but I've been and toured and known students at private schools for dyslexia. They offer a full day, traditional day of education. They have the same goal as any other school, which is to educate the child, get them on the pathway to high school graduation and college entrance. Everything is centered around that. So they have to, if you're on a high school graduation pathway or a college entrance pathway, then you're going to have, all the prerequisites that a traditional school would have. So what's the difference? Well, in the early years in first through fifth grade, the difference would be 90 minutes a day would be the gold standard of language therapy. And language therapy basically is a structured, sequential instruction that makes sure the child understands phonemic awareness, this sound letter principle. They then introduce the concept of pulling the word apart to know that a word is a package of sounds, not just one sound, which we talk about. Cat is cat. And then phonics instruction, which is obviously looking more at whole words and the sounds, those direct sounds, including spelling, and then building vocabulary, and then looking at comprehension. So you're building fluency through direct instruction, and then also with reading out loud with feedback. So that's an important part of the K-5 instruction at a school like Louisiana Key Academy or any good school for students with dyslexia. So they have 90 minutes in language arts, which every day, which most schools would have, 60 minutes, and it would be working at a faster pace on those language acquisition skills. Louisiana Key Academy also has 90-minute blocks for math as well, because it turns out that math now is very language heavy. So since the dyslexic has the primary deficit or area of remediation is language acquisition skills, and math is so language heavy, there's longer for math instruction as well. But all the subjects are delivered like we talked about, and they have ancillary PE, sports, arts. Dyslexic kids are great in all those things and need that time so that they can build their strengths as well as have their deficits remediated. So as you get to middle school and high school, the focus is less on the this direct instruction, but more on really helping them increase their fluency, but also really supplementing with tools, which we're going to talk about in another podcast, that help this. They're sort of like the great equalizer. So a lot of these technology tools we'll talk about, but you can imagine they're to help the dyslexic with reading, writing, and math, especially as the volume of homework increases. But if you're at a school for dyslexia, the dyslexic student's going to have teachers that understand that. They're going to have support system in the classroom, outside of the classroom. They're going to give accommodations at all times, and they're going to help them on a pathway so that they can graduate and get to college. And some of those things would include, like, do I have to take a foreign language when foreign languages are very difficult for students with dyslexia? Are there alternatives? Things of that nature. But there's no reason that specialty schools for students with dyslexia can and don't give the students all the things that a regular school would offer. Again, theater, sports, all the core curriculum, cheerleading, you name it. Part of the problem has been that most of the specialty schools for students with dyslexia have been private schools, which are very expensive. They can cost maybe $10,000 in certain areas of the South. They can cost $30,000 to $50,000 as well in the South and in the Northeast. And in some places like New York and California, they can cost $60,000 a year, which clearly from $10,000 to $60,000 puts it out of the reach of most parents. So Louisiana Key Academy, which I think is the perfect model because it's tuition free. So that means your parental income is not a limiting factor to get what your dyslexic student needs in the classroom. Louisiana Key Academy has been in Baton Rouge since 2013 and now serves grades first through 10th grade starting this August. There is a small kindergarten for those at risk for dyslexia, but dyslexic students, it's first through 10th grade. And the Baton Rouge campus is in a new location, which is 14 acres. It has its own gym, and so everybody's pretty excited about that. The North Shore LK, which is located in Covington, is going to begin its third year, and it has grades K through 6. This will be the first year that LKA offers sixth grade. A lot of the returning fifth graders obviously will be in sixth grade, but there are spots for new students as well. That campus is located out on the one of the roads towards Folsom in that area of Covington, but it's a new development and it's really lovely. The third school is located in Caddo, and that is where that's on Author Circle, and the school was the old Author Circle School, hence the name. And it's a lovely, got all these oak trees on it. It's beautiful. And second year, this is the second year, and it is serving students in kindergarten through fifth grade every year till we at least get through eighth grade. And then next August, we'll be opening the Ruston Pod. We were hoping to open it this August, but we've decided to wait till next August. But Jenny Morse, who did one of the podcasts, is the director, and she's out there trying to raise awareness. And that pod for a second, third, and fourth, and maybe fifth graders will be open next August. So that would be August 2025. There are similar models in other states. They're smaller schools. Most of them are private schools, but there are some, I have heard of some charter schools for dyslexia in other states. So, and then if you're homeschooling, I think you can look at the service we offer through the Dyslexia Resource Center, which is online language therapy tutoring. And so you could still homeschool your child, but you can have the language curriculum, which is so important, delivered by a language therapist online. And you yourself could go through the teacher training. That's what we see a lot of parents do that. They go through the teacher training program, and therefore they're equipped to help their children. There are lots of options, which is great. We've come a long way. And the model, I think, is that's great, obviously, is Louisiana Key Academy. And until we see a real change at the traditional school level, those kids with moderate to severe dyslexia are best served at a school like this. Okay, so now let's talk about how do you choose the right school for your child with dyslexia. And I would say, background knowledge is huge. And if you've heard any of our podcasts, you know that we recommend Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz. Also, the Coursera course by Dr. Shaywitz as well. If you go to Coursera and Google dyslexia, that course will come up. You can take it for free. If you want a certificate, it costs about $70. But you want to have a working knowledge of what dyslexia is, so that when you start researching and you're going to talk to schools, you have an understanding of what your child needs and what your child doesn't need, because your child only has so much time, and the window is really precious and small to get them what they need, because most of the kids are identified after kindergarten and first grade, and therefore they're behind. So Louisiana Key Academy is MSLEC accreditation. That's accredited. The MSLEC accreditation is a national accreditation. And I think that is something to look for. That's IMSLEC. It's not mandatory, but it does tell you that the school went through a lot of formalities to get that national accreditation, and they have come down to the school and really evaluated it, so that the delivery of the program is essentially what the dyslexic child needs. Now, the other thing that's important are the teachers going through training. And I think this is really important, because I know there are a lot of teachers who think they're trained in dyslexia. There are a lot of schools that say they train their teachers in dyslexia. But for those first 5 years, first through fifth grade, for that 90-minute block, you want your teachers to have gone through a training. And it can be called different things in different parts of the United States. In the South, it is called certification of academic language therapy, which takes 2 years. So you're looking for a teacher training program for those teachers of 2 years. And it's classwork and it's practicum where they're in the classroom working with students and they're being followed and coached and, experts that are already trained are guiding them through this training, both in the classroom and in the class, the students' classroom, and then the class materials. That's important. The teacher training aspect. If the teachers train for a weekend or for 2 weeks or even 2 months, they don't really know anything. That's just not enough. That's not what you want, because these skills in those early years are the foundation and important for the rest of the student's life. We've talked about the accreditation, we've talked about the teacher training. Now, when the teachers are teaching older students, or maybe they're teaching things outside of reading like math or social studies, there still has to be a baseline knowledge amongst the teachers, and a school that's set up to give the student a smaller class environment. The largest number of kids in a LK school would be 17. The instruction has to be delivered in a format that recognizes the difficulty with the reading acquisition skills or just the reading fluency. So they're not saying, okay, go home and read 50 pages of homework tonight, or we're having a pop quiz or test tomorrow and it's 100 multiple choice test. It's more of like, okay, how can we deliver content orally or in a technology program that they can read text to speech, and then an assessment after that can critically assess their knowledge but not punish them for their disability. So those are really important things. Other things would be, will the child get the accommodations of extra time? I've seen schools hold accommodations because they say, oh, the student is doing well, they don't need them. Well, that's not true, and that's not how accommodations are supposed to work, because you have a dyslexic who is a slow reader, who is working hard to read her, and that accommodation of extra time should be given without asking, without embarrassing the child. And it's a terribly humiliating for the child to have to, like, oh, I need my accommodations. I mean, on the one hand, I think it's good for the child to learn and not be embarrassed and really be able to advocate for themselves. But on the other hand, if the school's making it difficult to get those accommodations, that's nonsense. And that's terribly defeating for the students. So these are important questions. How are the teachers trained? What curriculum are they using? I didn't mention that. There are several different Orton Gillingham curriculums for the first through fifth grade. It can be alphabetic phonics. It can be Wilson. I mean, there are multiple ones. As long as they're Orton Gillingham based, or it can be a composite, which is really a good idea, of multiple programs, but it is working on those aspects that we talked about: the phonemic awareness, the decoding, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension. So you need to know the curriculum. Do they have any accreditation? The length and nature of the teacher training, what the school day looks like. Are they going to give you accommodations, or your child accommodations, without fuss? And what are those accommodations? And how do they bring out the students' strengths? What's the culture of the school? Are the kids learning to advocate for themselves, understand dyslexia? And of course, what is the cost? And then I think talking to other parents is always helpful, talking to parents that are there presently or that have been there in the past. And then where are those students that went to that school? Have they gone on to other schools and assimilated into them? Have they gone on to college? Have they graduated high school? Those are all important things to first look on the website. And then if it's not on the website, then you want to ask. And then obviously you want to visit the school. One thing I neglected to talk about, the other thing for high schoolers would be, do they have to take a foreign language, or are there other options? So, but back to how do you find this school? The great news is there are dyslexia networks, and with the internet, you should be able to find what's available in your area. And then you're going to go through that website and look at those things we talked about: the accreditation, the teacher training, the curriculum, what the school day looks like, the accommodation, and the outcomes of the school. And then you can visit the school. It'd be great if your child can go and sit through the day there one day, if it's during the school year. Now, if it's during the summer, obviously that's not possible. And then asking to talk to a parent of either a former student or a present student. And don't think that one size fits all, but as much as you can tell for your student, is this the right place? And remember, though, to take that Coursera course or read Overcoming Dyslexia, listen to our podcast, so that when you go in, you're equipped to make the best decision, and that you're not intimidated to say, this is what I know, and this is really what I want for my child. This is what my child needs, because you're the best and the biggest advocate for your child. Let's close out this session on alternative education models for students with dyslexia. So we've said you as the parent or you as the teacher need to be educated. And the more you know, the better. And you're going to look at either Overcoming Dyslexia or the Coursera course on dyslexia. You understand that if a student has mild dyslexia, that's going to look different, and the needs are going to be different than for those with moderate to severe dyslexia. And the choices are going to depend on your income and where you live, but that you're going to look for schools that don't just say they're for dyslexic kids, but they have the infrastructure to really help your child, which includes teacher training, the right curriculum, the accommodations, and the culture to really embrace your child so they can rise to the challenges of school and the place they want to get to. And then you're going to, after you've done your homework, understand where your child is. You look on the internet, ask the questions if what you need to know is not on there. Schedule a visit, talk to the parents of those, and then make an informed decision. And again, it could be a private school, it could be homeschooling with a tutor from the DRC, or it could be a school like Louisiana Key Academy, which is a tuition-free school. 3 of them in Louisiana, more to come, for those students with moderate to severe dyslexia. You want to do this. Don't be complacent. Don't say, well, I'm going to try another year at a traditional school. You want to do this as soon as possible. It's important for the child's self-esteem and for the future of the student's future to reach their potential. The DRC, the Dyslexia Resource Center, and Louisiana Key Academy both have great websites. They have links to the others' website, but also links to the Yale Dyslexia and Creativity Center, which is a great resource. So I would encourage you to look on those websites. We'll have more podcasts. We've done a fair number of podcasts, and you can look at those for information. And we're here to help. If you have questions, please contact us. That information will be on the screen. And just know that your child can succeed and you're the navigator. So don't give up. Just spend the time to learn about dyslexia and then choose the right school. And best of luck and have a great day.